Okay, cool. Recording started. So hello everyone. Welcome to Agile Mauritius 4th meetup event. So yeah, we're already at our 4th event. So I am Akhtar and one of the members of Agile Mauritius. Today I'll co-facilitate the session with Harold, who will introduce himself shortly, and with Danusha, who will give some more details about Agile Mauritius and our quest for volunteers. So before we proceed, let me give you some guidelines for the session. Kindly ensure that you're on mute when the speakers will be talking, please. We will have 10 minutes Q&A after the talk, where you will have the opportunity to ask questions. If during the session you have questions, you can also use the chat window. We will also have 45 minutes lean coffee today on growing agility in general and challenges you wish to share, discuss. And note that we will also be recording this session. Any question you have, I am here to assist you on Zoom. And I will now hand over to Harold, who will introduce today's event and the speaker. The floor is all yours, Harold.
Thank you, Akhtar. Can everyone hear me clearly out there? Just yes, if you can.
Yes.
All right, awesome. So I'm one of the core members of Agile Mauritius, and today it's my pleasure to introduce Jean Coetzee, someone that I've known for a while. And Jean has like over 23 years of experience in information technology. And during this time, he's worked across multiple technical roles as a project manager. He's now an Agile coach. And Jean has had the privilege of working alongside some of the most skilled teams and diverse teams and team leaders or leaders in the industry. Jean believes that we truly need to become experts in any given area, and we should continuously question our perspectives, even our formal education. So everything that we're doing is open to be challenged. And from his perspective, he gets information from various methods, whether it's listening to new podcasts, new books, new webinars, exploring, reading, observing, just experimenting and trying to evolve his experiences or his approach from his interactions with the world. He keeps himself educated with books, studies, papers, journals, and the latest human performance studies and in psychology. And he even goes as far as trying to rely on some of the long forgotten concepts and ideas that we now deem as being obsolete in this modern world. Jean's interests are what drives people, and he tries to find and discover new ways to actually help others to become better humans. Today, Jean will be presenting or sharing with us, his perspectives on what is Agile, or what is agility and Agile 2.0. So without further delays, Jean, I'd like to just hand over to you so we can hear more about your topic. Over to you, sir.
Thank you for the introduction, Harold. I'm going to click share. Let's see if it's projecting. Can you see the screen?
Yes, yeah, but your audio is a bit low.
Pardon?
Your audio was a bit low.
My audio is a bit low. Should I speak louder?
Yes, it's great now.
Okay.
Ah, perfect. Yeah. Okay, today I'm going to speak about agility and Agile 2.0. I'm pretty sure you all know this because this has been advertised this way, or advertised. This is a picture of Le Morne taken from La Première Beach when I was in Mauritius in 2020, 2019. So I have one question to ask before we start. Very important question, actually. How are you? Well, I'm very curious about people and how they interact with information. And the most important thing that I have found people's interaction with information is the ability to be present. And that's why it's important for me to ask this question. I'm pretty sure no one will be here if they wouldn't want to be here, but that's why I'm asking. How are you? Okay, so first of all, I'd like to start off with a little about me. I've already been told what I am and what I do, but this is just a little personal things. I live in Cape Town, and that is roughly where I am. I'm just a smiley face in a big world. I like to go to the ocean. I need a tan, yes, and I love the mountains, and I love food, especially waffles with chocolate ice cream. Okay. I'm going to just do a quick differentiation between agile and agility because it's very different from each other. Because this topic is about agility and Agile 2.0, I just want to make a distinction quickly. First of all, Agile is a way of thinking with focus on calibration, frequent delivery of value, and the ability to deal with functionality changes. It consists of values, principles, methods, for example, Scrum, and practices. This is a quote from agilexl.com. I did not come up with this myself, so this is what the world out there thinks about this. But I like to simplify things. I don't like descriptions. I feel words do have a meaning behind this, but for me, I like to use metaphors. So for this, I'm going to use sport. Now, Agile for me is like practicing for a sport that you are going to be competing in. So that's what Agile is to me. Agility, quoted also from Agile XL, is the ability of a business as a whole to respond quickly to changes, especially external changes. For example, by adapting business processes or changing customer experiences. The metaphor for me in this regard is the actual competition or the game match that is being played. So agility in the bigger sense of the word has to do with what the business is capable, the power that you are able to actually exert, that you have acquired from practicing Agile. Let's go into agility a little bit more. The question here that gets asked a lot is, why is it so important to the success of companies? There's three things that usually get mentioned here: speed, resilience, and success. There's different terminologies that are being used to express this, but these are the main ones, these three. And often there's an equation to it: speed and resilience equals success. Now, what about Agile 2.0? Well, it's like splitting logs, and that's exactly what we're going to have to go and do. Agile 2.0 looks at frameworks like XP, which has between 13 and 36 processes. Scrum has more than 17 processes. This keeps changing, of course. Kanban has 3 to 7 processes. Now, how much more can we make this lean? Can we go less than 1 or just 1? The question is there. What if we take Agile and lean, take the best from both worlds, and create an ultra lightweight method? This is known as ULM, and this is quite subjective in regards to what practices are being used. The practices are not the same for every team or for every organization. It is flexible, and that's what agility is about. Agility often gets referred to as the ability to deliver to our customers with intent and quality, but we do not recognize the practices that are attributed to it. So this is an introduction to the ultra lightweight revolution. It's quoting from agilelion.com. As of now, only Kanban qualifies as an ultra lightweight method to achieve Agile 2.0 for IT and software development, but this is just temporary. What I have done, my best advice that I've given for new teams is to look at their values. The values that I try and focus on usually is simplicity, trust, respect, ownership, and accountability. We always have a team. They talk to each other either daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, depending on those. There's an arrow that goes to the customer. The customer is another character in this that also needs to be communicated to. And we leverage on the feedback loops that we create between the customer and the team. The more frequent we do it, we get feedback loops that enable us to do so. And you may recognize these as practices within some of the frameworks that we use, like daily stand-ups, retrospectives, customer reviews, demos, etc. Those are three separate instances where feedback loops are enticed. We can continue doing this, like I said, on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. And the more frequently we do this, the more frequently information is shared and the less risk is involved. This is simplifying what we are doing right now in the frameworks that we acquire or adopt for teams. We often use things like Scrum, XP, Kanban, and try and use all the practices that are within it. But what if we chose fewer of those things and not even use a framework or a practice, a set of practices, but rather select the ones that we actually do need for the specific team that we have? Those are the bare minimums. So that's my best advice for new teams. Thank you for your time. And I'm pretty sure there will be some time for questions.
Cool. Thank you so much, John, for sharing this insightful view around Agile 2.0. So I'd like to just open the floor to questions before we shift over to the lean coffee, or let me actually.
Yeah, there's one question from Andre in the chat window.
Okay. What are the processes of XP, Scrum, and Kanban? John? You're on, we can't hear you, John, you're on mute.
Oh, excuse me. What are the processes of XP, Scrum, and Kanban? I'm not sure if you are referring specifically to what practices or processes are within it, but or the practices in regards to that. But the processes for XP relates to certain ceremonies that are conducted to get feedback, and it's quite descriptive as to what it is that is being performed. So I don't know if you've read the books on, or the big black book of XP that actually shows you how to do, for example, user stories, that there should be a certain amount of communication to the customer, and the customer has to be with the team, for example. With Scrum, example of that would be there is a retrospective, yes, there is a daily stand-up, and yes, there is a sprint review, but there's also sprint planning, there's a backlog refinement. All of these are regarded as processes. And then again with Kanban, a lot fewer, limiting work in progress and focusing on flow, etc.
Awesome. The next question is from Isaiah. What is Agile 2.0 really?
Agile 2.0 if I could explain it in a few words, it's a combination of practices between Agile and Lean, and it's framework agnostic. So there's no sets of practices. It's rather a list of practices that you are familiar with in each of them, and try and eliminate the waste as much as possible, so that there's no use or no need to apply them where they are not necessarily bringing any value. So stripping down all those unnecessary processes to get closer to value as possible.
Cool. So the question continues. So how can we use it in our business processes?
You can use this by identifying what the teams currently do, and using for example, the value stream mapping exercise, where you look at the entire process that the team currently goes through and identify, or even ask the team whether they find value in actually using those processes. If they don't find value in those processes, it's worth considering excluding them, and perhaps experimenting with not having them and seeing what the result of that might be with cycle time, if you're using cycle time, or velocity, etc.
Cool. Any other questions for Jean? No? Okie dokie. Thank you, Jean. So what we're going to do presently is move to a lean coffee. I've just shared the chat in the link, and we'll use this to talk about, how we could potentially grow Agile in your different businesses or different areas, or address different types of challenges that you feel that growing agility could actually help. So I've just shared a lean coffee board, and I'll explain what a lean coffee is shortly.
Jean, maybe you can make our host.
Yeah.
Please. Thank you.
Yay. Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. So what this lean coffee is, it's a mechanism for us to have an agendaless meeting, but that's still structured. So you can share your topics or ask your questions, or post topics that you'd like to discuss. For instance, I could go something really important. You press the add button, and then that will come over here, and then different persons can share their different perspectives of what they'd like to discuss. And then we'll go through each of these items. We'll merge them together for those that are similar. We will then vote on them to define the priority in which we discuss, and then we'll just go through the meeting in that order. All right. So I open the board to you to go through and share your topics. What is the cultural topic? Cool.
Are you all able to connect to the link?
I'll paste it again in case.
Okay. Let me paste this again.
Yeah, we
Is
are
everyone
around.
able?
Yeah. Go ahead, Harold.
I was asking if everyone is able to access the board. I see quite a few. So we're using this opportunity here to discuss whatever topics you believe are important or things that you'd like to raise to Jean or others here about how they can solve agility related challenges in their different spaces.
We have around 60% people able to connect. So we can add our topics, Harold?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Good.
How many minutes, Harold?
5 minutes.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, let me just quickly go through and see if there's anything that we can merge. Can Agile 2.0 be applied to other sectors like education? Thoughts on servant leadership and, oof, that one is gone, yeah. Thoughts on servant leadership and how leaders embrace them. How being Agile has really changed with work from home. How can we convince directors to adopt Agile? What is the sell, or what's the selling point? Would you say that Agile works best when people are co-located or in virtual mode? Scrum or Kanban for Agile 2.0? Agile 2.0, what are your thoughts on process that were in 2001? Where's that one gone? Okay, that one is gone. I'm not seeing that one, here it is. Versus now. There are a lot of ways to scale Agile. What, according to you, are the best practices for scaling? So this sounds like a scaling one, which we can probably merge with there's this one. And I saw another one, here we go, called the scaling.
There are a few on Agile 2.0.
How is Agile 2.0 different from business agility, Scrum, Kanban, or Agile 2.0?
The next one to it. Yeah.
Where? We
Yeah,
go.
this one.
What is the cultural challenge that are needed in the area to enable agility? What are the best training and institutions for learning Agile? I think it's interesting.
I'm loving
So
the questions I'm loving the questions that are coming through, by the way.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to recommend that we go through and vote. Then we'll see.
There's another one on Agile 2.0. Can Agile 2.0 be applied to other sectors like education?
This one.
Yep.
Can I merge it with this one? That one. Let's see if that goes. I think I've made a mess of it.
Let me merge it, Harold.
Yeah, it's not going to for me.
Okay, give me
Yeah,
one
and
second.
there's also some of the things around work from home and virtual, learning virtually, I think.
Okay, so I can do that one.
Number 14, I think.
14. Cool. Are you able to?
There's two on training. Best institution. So that's number 4 and number 19. Prince PMP. Yeah, it's it. This one. 19.
19.
I can't see 19. Where's that one?
On the top.
Upward.
Rule, it has the
Oh,
same
yeah, yeah,
rule,
All right,
yeah.
I see it
yes.
now. I see it now. All right, cool. Very good. All right,
Arrow
so let's
number 12
Go.
relates to Agile 2.0 too.
Yeah, that's when actor is merging, I think.
Cool. Any others? This Agile is effective for PMP or Prince, so training also.
Yep. Servant leadership and how do we convince directors? 17 and 15.
Good. We start. So has everybody gone through and voted? So you have these little dots, you have this little vote button, and you each have three votes. So you can just go through if you haven't voted yet, and then just vote on the things that you would like for us to discuss, if you haven't gone through and voted yet. So we'll give you another 2 minutes to vote. Just add this one. So just under a minute left to vote. Okay, so let's start the discussion. So our first topic of discussion is training. So under training, we have what are the best training institutions for learning Agile? How can we convince directors to adopt Agile? What is the selling point? What are your thoughts on servant leadership and how leaders embrace them? How is Agile effective over PMP or Prince? And then training in general. So Jean, do you have any perspective, or the rest of the team, do you have any perspectives on this? I open the floor to you guys.
I'll take the first one, number 4. What are the best training institutions for learning Agile? For me, this is probably yourself. I have done a few certifications at different institutions, but I don't believe that that is the best way to learn. I believe that your personal experience and experimentation, your own research, reading books and podcasts are the best ways to learn. But if we had to absolutely pin down to institutions, I would say one will need to see what it is that you would like to get from it. And the best way I've done is to actually go out and find out where did people do their certifications with. And it also depends what you want to do with the certification. So if you want to do, if it's purely for learning or if it's for certifications, I think the motivation for each is different. So yeah, that's my perspective.
Cool. Does anybody else want to follow up on that one or just add a bit more context? Cool. There's a hand that's raised. Andre?
Yes, thanks. So Jean, I just want to check with you. So one of the things is certification, and then there's just Agile training. So I work with IQ Business and we do Agile training. So some of the trainings we include certifications with, but do you think that the certifications are that important? So to me, I like what you said about your own experience, which is really important. I do believe that there is a space still for the fundamentals of Agile. So that you have, you know, in Shuhari, you have the levels of understanding. So if you don't understand the fundamentals and the basics, you might end up on a wrong journey or pathway. So yeah, I agree with learning from yourself, but there are a number of reputable organizations that can help you with that first step into Agile.
Awesome. Thanks, Andre. I see Chris's hand is up.
Yes, thank you so much. Let me put the video on. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I actually wanted to follow up on that with more or less what Andre has said, in the sense that I thought that when you start off, just to get what's out there, you might want to engage some institutions and so on. But I think once you've decided exactly what is it that you want to grow in, then you can start doing that experimentation and research, by yourself as such. But I think it's important to see what's out there, make a determination to say, this is the specific part that I want to grow in, and then from then on, you can then do the research. But I've also found that the value of having meetups such as these and many others, I found that networking and then learning from these meetups to be much valuable. When I started out in Agile, I knew zero, but I attended so many meetups and I've learned quite a bit from them. So I think these kind of forums are very vital in one's learning. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Cool. Thank you, Chris and Andre. All right. Any other perspectives on this? All right. For the person that asked about the directors, I'd be keen to hear like what problem you're trying to solve with Agile. But let's just take this moment and then move to the next part of a lean coffee, right? So now what we're going to do is vote. You can either vote thumbs up to extend the topic, like the middle one, I don't want to talk about it anymore, or I don't care, or thumbs down, I prefer to move on to something else. All right. So just go through and vote with your intent. And then if we have enough people that want to extend, then we will extend for another 3 minutes. Is everybody able to vote? Okay. So we continue for another 3 minutes. All right. So I'd be keen to hear from the person that said that they'd like to convince their directors, like, why are you trying to adopt Agile? What problem are you trying to solve with Agile? If you could just provide me some more context. if you're trying to talk, your mic may be off.
Maybe the person already left.
Okay. Okay, all right, cool. So we move on to the next one. What are your thoughts on servant leadership and how leaders can embrace them? So briefly, my perspective on this, like servant leadership is more of an attitude or a way of life. You know, it's how you want to change how you lead, moving from command and control where you're telling people what to do versus creating a space where people can be empowered. And there are a bunch of different principles related to servant leadership that change how persons actually show up in the workspace, how they introduce things like mindfulness, how they ensure that we have transparency, so we have agreed ways of making sure that the best ideas win. So I think that from my perspective, servant leader goes like hand in hand with Agile, because it's a lot about how do we empower people and how do we empower teams so that we can actually deliver the most important things. I don't know if anybody else has a different perspective that they'd like to share.
Hi.
Hey.
It's Ignatia here. So it's not a different perspective, but just to add on to what you're saying. So you see that the role of a Scrum Master has evolved into that of a coach. Like most Scrum Masters are now called Agile coaches, because that's what you're doing. Instead of leading the team from the front and telling them what to do, it's almost like you're standing on the side and just guiding them on how to do things themselves the right way. So I definitely echo your sentiment in that it is how you can servant lead a team.
Yeah, and it's so important knowing like when to step in and when to step back. And that's one of the things that most leaders, especially in top-down organizations, struggle with, because they've been trained to come with the answers, tell the people where to go, tell them what to do, when to do it, and all of these things, versus saying, you know, let me tell you what I want to achieve and let me help to guide you there. Is that 100%. Also what you're experiencing as a Scrum Master Agile coach, Ignatia?
Yeah, 100%. We found instances where the Scrum Master or Agile coach is seen as a manager, and that's where things become a little bit tricky because you're expected to do people's KPIs and things like that. So it does make it difficult as a role and how to define yourself in the organization when you're expected to also be the manager for people.
All right, cool. So let's see if anyone wants to continue with this, and then we will proceed depending on what the room says. Please don't type, please don't type, please don't type. All right, seems that the end topic has it, so let's finish this topic. Thanks everyone for contributing. Let's move on to the next one. Scaling Agile. Right. So here we're talking about when should you consider scaling, and there are lots of ways to scale Agile. What according to your best practices? What according to you are the best practice for scaling? John, I'd love to hear from you to kick us off on this one. Or anybody else.
Yeah, so the first one, when should you consider scaling? I don't know if this is a direct, there's a direct answer to this, but let me just mention that often if you actually go search on Google, which I don't advise if you're looking to scale, but you'll often find something like Agile 2.0 being the scaling method. So safe, less, and all the others are being thrown in as Agile 2.0. The Agile 2.0 that we presented earlier is not the same thing. But when you are considering scaling, I wouldn't do a Google search on it. I think this is a necessary process or thought process to go through when you are considering a scaling framework. That being said, there should be caution for what it is you would like to get from it. And as we have all learned from the Agile Manifesto that tools shouldn't be, put first, but rather, the interactions between people. So solving the problem by patching it up with, with a scaling framework is not necessarily always the best idea, although it is successful means of solving big corporate strategic problems in a larger scale. So for me, when is definitely debatable depending on who it is and when you should be having those discussions.
So maybe before you go a bit further, maybe you should tell us, what do you consider a scaling framework for those persons who may be new to Agile and don't have an idea of what we consider scaling or what's a scaling framework and stuff?
We have to be very careful when we use framework as in this regard as well. But the framework in the sense of the community are things like, for example, SAFe and LESS. And although I haven't personally got certification in LESS myself, I've done some SAFe certification. I am familiar with the intent and what it is aiming to do. So for me, it's a framework that allows you to be able to carry information across various levels of business and create organization and visibility and control without losing sight of the looming deadlines and the efficiency that is aimed to be achieved with these frameworks.
Cool. And I see Chris shared something in the chat. Chris, you wanted us to elaborate on that, please?
Yes, certainly. So what I actually wanted to put across is the fact that before you go into scaling, what you are currently doing, what you are currently practicing must be proper and effective and working, solving your pain points before you can think about scaling. Because if it's not, then you are scaling dysfunction or you are scaling pain, actually. So you need to make sure that it solves the problems, it is effective, it's working for you, and then that's what you will scale. You want to scale success, not failure or dysfunction. So I just wanted, in terms of answering when should you scale, you need to make sure that things are proper first, and then you scale. Thank you.
So we don't want to go around and install Agile. Okay. All right. So Jean, do you have any perspectives on the other like the best practices? You're on mute, Jean.
Are you talking about the second question?
Yes. What's the best scaling practice?
Wow. Okay. So now we're talking about practices as well. So if we're talking about frameworks and practices, I mean, if we're using it interchangeably, if we're saying or in this regard, practice and framework in the same regard, I think Saved by the Bell.
Okay, so we know the drill. Let's just go through and quickly vote on this. And then we see if we continue. Okay, so most persons want to hear what you're saying, Jean. Let's continue.
Great. So for me, the best practice is the one that works. If it doesn't work, throw it out. Okay, I'm clearly a bigger proponent of practices rather than frameworks. So if a practice works, use it. If a practice no longer works when it previously worked, then you need to review it. And that's for me why it's important to frequently reflect and have those feedback loops among people. That is the thing that we've neglected the most, is talking to each other, but be feeling safe to do so as well. I too often see in organizations where information is withheld and not shared, And when something goes well, it's not celebrated. When something goes wrong, people keep quiet, and nobody is held accountable for, or actually steps up to be accountable for it. So for me, the best one, like I say, is the one that works, and one should always continuously look for the best ones.
Yeah, so that goes back to like trying not to scale dysfunctions, right? And scale things that are working. So I see Elias wrote something, there should always be a reason for scaling. That is, what value do we hope to derive by scaling? So Elias, are you saying that we only want to, before we just get up and scale, we need to know why we're trying to scale? Is that what you're saying? If I understand it correctly?
Yeah, that is correct, because scaling on its own doesn't deliver benefits to organizations. You may find that you've actually started on your journey towards agility, and you've got one or two teams. So, and most people, and you haven't really tested it, your practices within the organization. So you don't have enough information to actually start scaling. Or scaling meaning going in this context, be an extension to different areas within organization, whether it's business areas or technical areas. Yeah? So you need to have a reason why you want to actually go there, rather than just going there because our competitors are going there. Yeah, that's what I wanted to put forward. Yeah.
And I've also noticed that like quite a few companies that are adopting Agile for various reasons, the point when they fail is literally at that point when they've started trying to scale. So they're trying little experiments, and then they're trying to scale, and then that's the point that they fail. Zahira's also shared a useful link for different scaled frameworks, and it's a comparison of the different groups. All right, cool. Is there anything that anyone else would like to share before the timer on scale frameworks? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. Yusuf says, always ask yourself what you're giving up by scaling. I've never thought about that before. I like that. All right, so this says finished topic. All right, let's move on to the next one. Thank you so much, everyone. All right, Agile 2.0. Let's see what this one had. How does Agile 2.0 differ from business agility? Jean, would you like to share with us?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that who wrote this meant Agile 2.0, but if you are saying agility, agility has various facets, or business agility. There's that movement or organization that started business agility. And there's multiple concepts around that. They call it cultural agility, business agility, organization or enterprise agility. There's multiple areas in which agility is being spoken of. Agile, or if we say Agile 2.0, was, like I also alluded to earlier, is that often, and I'll actually try and pull up the article just after I speak, that speaks about Agile 1.0, 2.0, and Agile 3.0. Whereas Agile 2.0 came in with the scaling frameworks. They refer to the scaling frameworks when they speak about Agile 2.0, and when Agile 3.0 comes in is more around what people are applying in terms of business agility. So that is specific to how businesses can become more agile, or the agility of the business increased. So that is the difference that and if there's any other clarification I could try and provide, maybe the article will. Otherwise, you can ask me directly.
Cool.
Yeah, and just to add on that, it's Ignatia again. Business agility, in my understanding, is when teams outside of the development team, teams outside of the software development team specifically, like outside of IT, start adapting to agility. It's when you take the frameworks or methodology and take it to the rest of business. The marketing team now starts adopting it. the human resources team starts adopting it. Higher management, essentially even your management committee starts adapting the concept of being agile. That's where business agility comes in my understanding, and just how it's been applied in practice. So it is, yeah, just bigger, like you said, than Agile 2.0. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah. Would it also be valuable to think about it like Agility 2.0 may be the bunch of practices that have evolved since the Agile Manifesto came out? And business agility is that thing that businesses all want to achieve, where they can pivot and make decisions dynamically based on what's happening in the marketplace. Would that be one way to think about it?
I think so. I would agree with that, definitely. Yeah.
So one is the thing that we do, and one is the outcome we're trying to achieve. Yeah. All right. And then there's another question, Agile 2.0, what are your thoughts on processes? What are your thoughts on the processes that came out in, say, 2000 versus now, especially given the pandemic and all that we have to be working face-to-face, and the different types of problems that teams will be facing? What do you guys think? How are you seeing this? Is Agile 2.0 significantly different from what came out in 2.1? In 2000, sorry, are we solving different types of problems?
In my view, the Agile Manifesto is ever relevant today than it was in 2001 when it was signed. I feel maybe here and there are maybe a bit of deep dive. It can go into one or two of the manifesto items, but more specifically, I would say the way in which the processes came up with, and I think there was a comment earlier specifically around the practices or the frameworks not having processes, but they have artifacts and ceremonies or events. It's basically just a label that was put onto those things. If you had to look under the umbrella of the entire Agile set of practices, you can take away all the labels, whether it's XP or Scrum. They all have a list of practices, but they're all interchangeable ultimately. So for me, they're all relevant, and there is a need to have the processes in any case.
Cool. I think we should take let's vote and see where we go. So the noes have it. So let's probably take one more and then move to the next part. Okay, work from home. And here we're talking about, would you say that Agile works best when people are co-located or in virtual mode? How being Agile has really changed with work from home? Any thoughts?
I've got one question here. Are you aware of any group working on some Agile version for remote working?
Say that again, Akhtar.
Yeah, I was saying, is anyone aware of any group working on Agile in terms of remote working, specifically for remote working?
You mean the non-collocated teams?
Yeah, because like we said, since 2001 and since a few months back, mostly the teams were collocated. So then we are talking about Agile 2.0, but is there something new coming like Agile Remote or something like that?
Yes, Agile 2020.
No, I promise you, I did see a remote framework Agile remote framework. If I could just get my link to open. There is, it's like an Agile remote framework. There, it exists, I think. There's something like that. Yeah.
I thought that maybe we can group together and invent.
And create it. Let me drop the link. Let me try and drop the link in the chat. Copy. I want to just copy the link.
But yeah, in terms of, I guess, the principle about co-locating, so it has always been about people, but the pandemic has really brought people together to use the tools available to make remote working, like, you know, these conversations that you would normally have. Of course, for some teams who were doing everything face-to-face, I guess it took some time to adjust, but some teams who were already doing it virtually, I think it was easier. But I think by now, 1.5, 2 years, it's everyone has like a board, even personal board, Kanban board. So that's, I think, great how we are moving forward in terms of co-location and working in remote.
Cool. Akhtar, you want to jump in?
Yeah, personally, my experience is that I prefer co-location because even if we are struggling to make things work currently, but being co-located and having this face-to-face conversation and just hearing someone else mentioning something and getting into this conversation, it helps a lot as opposed to us chatting from time to time on the various tools. That's my personal point of view.
Cool. Subhash?
Yeah, so just to add on what Akhtar just said, I think one of the things that we kind of lose when we work in the virtual way is like from an agile coach perspective or even Scrum Master perspective, one of the things that we do is observe the team, how they're working. And that's very important because based on your observation, you can take actions or take decisions or even propose things that could be done in retrospective because you've observed something that is not working and you ask the team. But one of the things that you don't really get when you are working in a virtual way because everyone is doing their work and the only time that we meet is probably during the different ceremonies, or if we need some help or unblock something, that's when we really interact with the people. So that big part around observing the team, how they are working, what are the interactions they are having, that part I think is missing.
Yeah. So you can be surrounded by people virtually, but still be lonely. And especially if you can't see how they're doing or how they're interact, how you interact.
Exactly.
How they're interacting. You miss out on the body language. Cool. Any other perspectives on this? No? All right. So there's also something around poor connectivity. So not having internet does not make you agile. I'm teasing. All right, I'm just teasing. So I'm going to recommend that we switch over to Danusha. Can we continue to the other part? Danusha, you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you give me host?
Yes, you have. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your perspectives.
Thank you, Harold. Very nice link coffee.
Okay, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So thanks, everyone. Good evening. So I'm Danusha from Agile Mauritius. So like we mentioned earlier, so we wanted to give you an overview of what is Agile Mauritius, who are we, where can you find us, what have we been busy with, and what's our ask from you. The main purpose of Agile Mauritius is to expand agility across Mauritius and ultimately the Indian Ocean. So it's framework agnostic, and it is open to everyone. So be it you're from tech, from business, an entrepreneur, a leader, a CEO. So we meet through meetups, talks, lean coffee sessions, and conferences to stay on top of the changing market needs. Sorry. So who are we? So as you've been seeing us quite a few meetups. So the founding members, it's myself, Danusha. So we have Actor, Harold, Patrick, and Subhash. And we've recently been joined with Jeremy and Roy. So what do we do? So we take ownership of the different activities that we schedule. So we dedicate time to community activities, and we drive marketing and communication activities to make things happen. Okay, so where can you find us? So if you go on the different social media, so you will see Agile Mauritius. So on Meetup, as of now, we have 200 members. So we have around 30 attendees around per event. On LinkedIn, we have 128 followers. So we also have our YouTube channel and our website, Agile Mauritius, so which we will also share in the chat. So please feel free to follow us, share with your friends, and post our events. So what have we been busy with? So it started in March. So prior to that, we were organizing our user group. So in March, we've been promoting Agile Mauritius. So we went to Agile World channel, so to promote what we were busy and what we were looking forward. And then in April, we had Claire Donalds and Jeff Watts, so who spoke on the new normal for Agile coaching. And then in June, we had Chad and Jeff, who also spoke about Agile, where to start and why. And last month, we had Colin Johnson, and we had a game as well to learn Kanban basics. So basically, and today we had our lean coffee, and we had Jean who spoke about Agile 2.0. So our aim is to get people sharing their experience and share it in Mauritius or across as well. And we've been busy doing that. So what we need now is we need volunteers, so to help us in terms of communication, creating a safe and open community, assessing key activities. So if you want to be part of the group, part of this community, so we will send a Google form in the chat and in our different channels, like in Meetup, etc. So please fill it in and feel free to join us. So we'll be in touch for the next steps. So that was a bit about Agile Mauritius and our ask for volunteers. So thank you. Any questions, anyone?
I've pasted the link in the chat window, Danush.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. So I think we're at the point where we will conclude for the rest of the day. If you have any questions or would like to get further information, you can contact us on either any of the social media links that we've shared, or you can find either any of us here, Roy, Danusha, Akhtar, Subhash, Jeremy, myself. We're also on LinkedIn, and the Agile Mauritius group is on LinkedIn. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for participating today in Agile Mauritius with us. I'd also like to thank Jean for spending time and telling us about agility and Agile 2.0. All right, thanks everyone.
Thanks, Harold.
Thank
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye.